when I spent my 2 sabbatical years in Switzerland, I started experimenting, and I knew from a number of questions we had asked in IBM that they showed is a certain order of countries. And then I tried the same questions on my management students at IMD, who were not from IBM. They were managers. In IBM we had employees, and but they beautifully reproduce the same ordering of countries. And then for the first time I saw, well, here I have data. These are not data about the company. These are data about the countries. That was the first time I had some tangible in my hand. When the Japanese started to conquer the American market, the Americans were flabbergasted. How is it possible that these people do better than we do? And then they invented the word culture. But then they thought about organizational culture. They said, well, we should have an organizational culture like the Japanese have. And then there were books, and there was a book, In Search of Excellence, Peters and Waterman. And that was, the one of the two, I think, was from McKinsey, and the other was from Harvard University. And there was another book that was called, I think, Corporate Cultures. But when I read those, I said, well, these people have never really done research. What they do is they go to the chief executive officer and they ask him a few questions.
Interviewing,
and they call that research.
Half an hour, and then...
They call that research. And
but in management field,
case,
it's very difficult finding researchers.
Of course. In my case, what I did is I got data from the people who work there. National cultures is one company in different countries. Organizational culture is many companies in one country. And that's it. I tried not only companies, actually also public organizations. And so I had also, for example, 2 municipal police cars in it. And then I tried to find participants, but it wasn't very easy because companies are not always very eager to let an outsider dive into their secrets. Organizational cultures have nothing to do with anthropology. They have to do with organization sociology. And the interesting thing with that was that these are things management can do something about it. So for a manager point of view, the organizational culture is very interesting. The national culture is interesting if you are a multinational, because you have to understand. But you cannot go to China as an Italian company that says, we'll turn those Chinese into Italians, or vice versa. It doesn't work. You have to accept, okay, the Chinese is a Chinese, an Italian is an Italian, the Dutch person is a Dutch person, and so on. Yeah. But the successful multinationals, they are successful because they have a common organization culture. And you can have common organization culture with different national cultures. That is what, fortunately, because one thing is in what I call the values, that is the national culture, and the other is in what I call the practices. Yeah. The practices are just things you teach. The point also is that the values we've learned as children and the values we absorb unconsciously as children, and everybody in the country, of course, absorbs to a certain extent. The practices, if we join a particular company, we get them the moment we join the company. And that is when we are 20 or 25 or 30. And if we join a different company, we have to change our practices. So these are things you can learn, unlearn, relearn, and that is manageable. So corporate cultures are part of management, and you see that the most successful managers are people who know how to manage their corporate culture. Yeah. Well, I need to tell you that, I think.
cultural dimensions related to the organizational practice.
So you have to understand national cultures, but you can manage corporate
culture.
Yeah. There is a lot of confusion there. As people think they can manage national cultures.
Yeah, because we grew up thinking about a nationality like within soccer.
The problems we are in with the euro, also of course they have ignored the cultural side of it, and now finally economists begin to discover culture. It takes a long time.
Please let me something more about the power distance index, because I'm very fascinated about such an index.
Yes.
My understanding is very useful. Many times talking with the students and colleagues, many people is asking me how we may handle with such a concept, such an index, to have really an understanding when we are exposed to another culture.
Yes. The most important thing to understand is that the key is in the subordinate. The key is not in the boss.
Okay.
So you have the subordinate has certain expectations. The subordinate feels at ease in a certain way, and if the subordinate is from a place where, say, fathers have a strong authority over their sons, or their children, then you have also to treat that employee like a good father. But if the employee is from a place where the children have to become independent as soon as possible, well, you should not treat them the same way, then you get in trouble. Personality also plays a role, of course, because in this respect, well, some people have a more of an authoritarian personality than others, and sometimes there is the fit between personality and the place where you send somebody is also important. That if you want to be a successful manager of, say, Middle Eastern people, you have to act in a more authoritarian way. And they think that's indecent, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, politically incorrect.
Yes. No, I try to it's politically incorrect. No, you should be more. Another thing you should do is show more respect. Because respect is very important. Certainly when the power distance is large. I say a little bit too much respect never does any harm.